This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Speaking to you on behalf of the Hebrew nation's Brit-Am, an organization that finds the lost 10 tribes now amongst Western nations, and that is where the lost 10 tribes are to be identified. That is where the descendants of lost 10 tribes of Israel are to be found today. We have proven it, and we go on proving it, and refining the proof, and bringing more and more evidence and discussions and analysis of this subject to the attention of the public. That's what we do. We research, we reveal the information, and we also work towards the reconciliation of the 10 tribes of Israel with the Jewish people, that is Judah. The Jewish people are represented by Judah, whereas the 10 tribes are often represented by Joseph. So now we're going to discuss an aspect of the story of the spies of Israel. When the Israelites came out of Egypt, they travelled through the wilderness. So John journeyed through the wilderness and they received the Torah in the wilderness, and then they came to the borders of the land of Canaan. Then Moses chose 12 tribes out of the 12 tribes of Israel. He chose 12 spies out of the tribes of Israel. Each tribe had its own representative spy. And these spies returned with a negative report concerning the land of Canaan, which they were supposed to go in and conquer. And they caused a demoralization of the spirit of the people, and the spirit rebelled. They wanted to appoint a leader and return to Egypt, and so God was angry with them, and it was decreed that all that generation should perish in the wilderness, and only their children should come into the land. And this was a time of calamity for all of the Israelite nation. Nevertheless, two out of the 10 spies did bring a positive report. They had tried to prevent the negative report of the others and to persuade the people to go in a positive direction. They were not successful, but they did present a redeeming factor, a redemptive factor for all of the tribes of Israel, and they themselves were rewarded. And these two spies were Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim and Caleb from the tribe of Judah. And they represent two different types of Israelites in the end times, through which we will receive our redemption. They are representative, they are prototypical examples of what will be in the future. And this is a principle in the Bible. The Bible is the truth, the Bible is the literal truth. We try and take the Bible as literally as possible. That is a principle we will receive from Yair Gaon and other great Jewish sages. That's also mentioned in the Talmud. The Bible never departs from its literal meaning. Together with this, the Bible also has allegorical factors in it. It comes to give us parables of things which will be. It relates to us prototypical examples, and it also comes to tell us different things of moral exhortations, points of philosophy, and how we should act and how we should react, and so on. So now we're going to discuss these two spies, Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim and Caleb from the tribe of Judah. We are told in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, beginning from verse 3, so Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord. He sent the spies out from the wilderness, all of the men who were heads of the children of Israel. Now these were their names, and it goes on to list the names of the spies who went out. And it says in verse 6, from the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Yefuneh. And verse 8, from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun. And then in verse 16, these are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called Hoshea the son of Nun Joshua, or in Hebrew Yehoshua. Hoshea, the name Hoshea was changed to Yehoshua, and Moses changed the name before the spies went out. That is what it sounds like. Moses changed the name of the emissary, the representative of the tribe of Ephraim, from Hoshea to Yehoshua. And when the spies returned, 10 of them, they represented a negative report. Only Yehoshua and Caleb were positive, as we mentioned. We find in Numbers 14 that all the congregation lifted up their voices, so when they heard the negative report of the majority of the spies, all the congregation, all the people, lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, if only we had died in this wilderness, why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword? That our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, and then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are bread. Their protection has departed from them. The Lord is with us. Do not fear them. In other words, do not be afraid of the inhabitants, the Canaanite inhabitants of the land. We can conquer them. God has given them into our power, and we can overcome them. Let us only do what God wants, and let us not rebel against him. But it says in verse 10, and all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. So God was angry with them, and he consequently we're told how he decreed that all that generation should die in the wilderness. Only Caleb and Joshua should come into the land. And Caleb was promised by God that he would come into the land and inherit it, and Caleb was described as having a different spirit in him, for which he was to be rewarded. It says in Numbers 14:2-4. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, or actually because he has a different or had a different spirit in him, and he followed me fully, I will bring him into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. But Joshua and Caleb were to enter the land. Numbers 14:30, he says, except for Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun, you shall by no means enter the land. In other words, the rest of the people will not enter the land, which I swore I would make you dwell in. And he goes on in verse 36, Numbers 14 verse 36. Now the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation complain against him by bringing a bad report of the land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before the Lord. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive with the men who went to spy out the land. Joshua was to become the head of the Israelite nations after the death of Moses. He became the leader. He led them in to conquer the land. Joshua the son of Nun was the leader of the Israelites when they conquered the land of Canaan. The whole book of Joshua is named after him. It describes his feats and his conquests. And the name Joshua means God will save. His name had been changed from Hoshea, which means God saved in the past tense possibly, to Joshua, God will save in the future tense. And Rashi and the other commentators explain that change of name was needed in order to save Joshua from the council of the bad spies. Though he was gone together with the bad spies, and Moses, even though Moses had helped appoint these spies as representative of the tribes, he must have intuited, he must have known something was liable to go wrong, and that Joshua was to be a redeeming factor in this, but he needed a little bit of help, so he changed his name as if to emphasize the fact that God would be of his assistance, would be the assistance of Joshua. And it says that Rashi explains that he effected the change of the name. So Moses changed the name. It was needed in order to save Joshua from the council of the bad spies. So here we have Joshua. Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim was later to lead in the conquest of the land. Joshua, he represents qualities of Joseph, of the leading factor amongst the 10 tribes of Israel. Joshua is from the tribe of Ephraim, from the tribes of Joseph, from the side of Joseph. And Joshua gives the impression of being straightforward. He is a straightforward person. He is a good man. But a simple, straightforward, honest, wholesome type. He does what has to be done. He's a hero, a man of action. Joshua believed that if God so commanded, that's what has to be done. And the end results will be justified. If God commanded it, we can count on the Almighty that the end results will be worthwhile. And Joshua was the leader, a hero, and he was a straightforward and simple and wholesome. And left to himself, he will stay on course. He will go in the right path. He will stay on course if left to himself. But he is possibly liable to be diverted by the influence of others. So Moses changed his name to give him extra strength, as if God would keep him straight. And that's all that was needed. He just needs to be kept straight, to be helped to keep straight, and he goes straight. And he may be considered a prototype of the Messiah, son of Joseph. The Messiah, son of Joseph, according to tradition, will lead the 10 tribes back before the Messiah, son of David. The Messiah, son of Joseph, will bring the tribes back, or initiate their coming back. He will defeat the enemies of the Israelite nations. He will initiate the return of the 10 tribes, and he will also assist in building the temple. And he will help the Jews build up their land, and he will initiate the reconciliation between the 10 tribes and Judah, and he will prepare the way for the Messiah, son of David. And Caleb, on the other hand, from the tribe of Judah, in his own way represents aspects of the son of David. Son of David comes from Judah, and Caleb was from Judah. But with the characteristics of Caleb a little bit more complicated. Caleb remained with the forces of Yahushua amongst Judah, who together with Yahushua they conquered the land, they conquered the section of the land. And Caleb, at the age of 85, he later approaches Yahushua towards the end of their conquest, and he presents himself as being as vigorous then as he was when he had been 45 years previously, when the incident of the spies occurred. And he requests from Yahushua, and he receives permission from Yahushua to go in and conquer Hebron, which is in the south of Judah, and the cities and areas around it. It was told in Joshua, book of Joshua 14, beginning from verse 6, Joshua 14:6. Then the children of Israel came to Joshua, then the children of Judah, Joshua was leading all of the tribes of Israel. And out of the tribes of Israel, the children of Judah, representatives from the section of Judah, came to Joshua. They sent a deputation to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know the word which the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea." I remember back then when God commanded us to go and inspire the land. Remember that? And remember what happened afterwards? I was 40 years old when the Lord sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought back word to him as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed my Lord, my God. So Moses swore on that day, saying, "Shall the land where your foot has trodden, and shall be your inheritance and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord your God. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive," as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel wandered in the wilderness. Now here I am this day, 85 years old. As yet I am as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in. Now therefore give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day, for you heard on the day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fortified. Maybe that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb the son of Jephunneh as an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite to this day, because he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. The name of Hebron formerly was Kiriath Arba. Arba was the greatest man amongst the Anakim. So we see it. So this is Caleb asking for the right to conquer Hebron and to possess it, and he was given this right, and it was forever after to be part of his inheritance and that of his descendants. And Hebron itself, where we are told else, was one of the cities of the refuge of the Levites, and it is explained that Caleb actually was given the periphery, the land around the outskirts of Hebron. It said Joshua 21:11-13, and also he was given other cities in the vicinity. For instance, we are told that Caleb promised to give his daughter Achsah in marriage to him who would conquer the city of Davidiy and its lands. And consequently, Othniel ben Kenaz, his nephew, the nephew of Caleb, the son of his brother, he conquered Davidiy, and therefore he married the daughter Achsah of Caleb. And the descendants of Caleb went on to become a major element in the tribe of Judah. Caleb was a descendant of Hezron. Hezron had married several women. One of the women he married was from Machir, of Manasseh, seen 1 Chronicles 2:21. And descendants from this union, this intermarriage, this intermixture of Hezron from Judah and Machir of Manasseh were to be very important in the forging the characteristics of Manasseh. And this is discussed by the Netziv, a great rabbi who seems to have attached great importance to this, to the influence of Judah amongst Manasseh, due to the marriage of the sons of Hezron with those of Machir, the son of Manasseh. What does the name Caleb mean? It means with one's whole heart. It's a related word, often usually actually pronounced the same as Caleb, but very similarly. Caleb means dog. And a dog can have good or bad connotations. The dog, in its good sense, is a beast which devotes its whole heart to its master. And so Caleb means with my whole heart. And Caleb is described, Caleb the hero is described as following God with his whole heart. Numbers 14:24 it said, but my servant Caleb, because he had a different spirit in him and has followed me fully, I'll bring you into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. So too he testifies on himself in Joshua 14:8. Caleb said of himself back then that I wholly followed the Lord my God. I've wholly followed the Lord my God. And so this is how Caleb is depicted and described, but it's not exactly that way. It's saying it is that way, but it's that way as a result of incompleteness reaching completeness, of evolution, of decision making. Caleb was able to do what he did, according to the different commentators, because he wanted at first and presented himself as thinking differently. And the rabbis and the commentators, they all point out that at first Caleb was not certain. He was inclined towards the opinion of the spies, but then he changed his mind, and also he presented himself to the spies. At first, the spies thought he was with them, but then he spoke against them. And he had a different spirit in him. That is why is why God says he was saved, because he had a different spirit in him. In Hebrew, a ruach acheret. It says, not so my servant Caleb, because he had a different spirit in him. And this ruach acheret, translated as different spirit, actually means a contrary inclination, a contrary nature. Caleb went against the majority. Caleb did not accept everything that he heard. Caleb had an inclination to be negative, to be against the commonly accepted assumptions. This was the nature of Caleb, and Caleb was therefore unable to stand as a minority against the majority, to stand up for the truth. This is a principle that we find exemplified by Caleb. Caleb had this ability to go against what was commonly accepted, and to do it backwards and forwards until he got to the truth. And afterwards he followed the truth as he found it with his whole heart, and therefore God praised him, especially went out of his way. The Almighty goes out of his way to praise Caleb before this. And we find different types of worship. Everyone is different. Everyone in this world has their own tasks to follow and their own ways to reach the Almighty. And even different groups and different peoples and different tribes in Israel also have their own individual pathways to get to God. And one of the pathways is that exemplified by Yair from Ephraim, to go straight forward, to go along the straight and narrow, to have faith, to believe in God and do what has to be done. And this too is found in Judaism, but there's another facet of Judaism which actually is stronger. And this facet of Judaism is to be negative, is to have another spirit, a contrary nature, as if to say. And this is what we find in the Talmudic dialectic, in their argumentation. The Jews, in their learning, they take a principle and they speak against it, and they criticize it, and they take it apart, and they put it back together again, and they go over and over hundreds of times over the same material from different aspects, from different points of view, from different facets of the material, But all the nooks and crannies of the subject, all the different nuances of expression, all the different possibilities are explored and discussed and debated, and eventually there evolves a consensus of agreement or an instinctive communal acceptance as to what the truth is and where the subject matter has to be placed and how it is to be understood. And then this can be done by a full heart, because it is thoroughly and completely explored and examined, and there's no longer any room for doubts or deliberations, at least not concerning what should be done, what the practical applications of the law is to be. And this enables a dedication with a complete heart, such as Caleb had. This is the Talmudic Jew, and we may say that Caleb, with his different spirit, his contrary nature, he represented the Talmudic Jew. And Joshua, with his straightforward obedience and dedication and devotion, he represents the true believer from Joseph. And we need both of them. We need both of them to achieve our future redemption, and we need to accept both of them and to recognize both of them in order to bring forward the eventual reconciliation between Judah and Joseph. Thank you. May the God of Israel bless all of us.